I want to talk to you guys a little bit tonight about this idea of the blessing of Abraham. Abraham is the central figure, other than Jesus, in the Old and the New Testament. And the blessings are primarily what comes from Abraham. And if you read in Deuteronomy 28, you can see a lot of those blessings and all that's involved. But I want to talk to you about another angle, another thought. We know these blessings. We know what it talks about. We talked about Jacob's blessing last week, and it's just a generation farther into it than Abraham, because Jacob is Abraham's son or grandson. And God made the promise to these men. And then in the New Testament, we see in Galatians chapter 3, it says, "For if the inheritance of the promise depends on observing the law, as these false teachers would like you to believe, it no longer depends on the promise. However, God gave it to Abraham as a free gift solely by the virtue of his promise." And then Galatians 3:29 says, "You belong to Christ, so you are Abraham's descendants. You will inherit all." Say all. Of God's blessings because of the promise God made to Abraham. And why would that promise be of value to us? Abraham received the promise because of faith. And God said, if you have faith, like faithful Abraham, you will receive the promises, or the promise, which is the blessing. But I want to talk to you tonight a little bit about the fifth part of this series, and actually the end of this series. That's Seed Time and Harvest. I want to talk to you about work and labor and how this all ties together. I know there's some teaching going on out there that God just blesses you. I've never found that to be the case in my life. I know the blessing is there. But he's not going to bring it to me like feeding a little bird in a nest. And there's some teaching going on like that, and then there's people who have tried it and nothing worked because they gave up too fast. Maybe they didn't spend the time with the Lord to find out what they were supposed to do, and they were maybe going the wrong way. But whatever the reason, lots of folks have given up. They've given up on their dream. They've given up on their goals. They've given up on a vision. I tell you what, I bet there isn't too many of you guys, I bet there ain't too many people in this country that while you were in high school, you weren't dreaming about doing something or accomplishing something. I mean, I don't know what that might have been. Maybe it was in business. Maybe it was in sports. Maybe it was in something. But you had a dream. And somewhere, that dream died. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit. Labor means hard work. Nobody is going to give you anything in this life, in a sense, how sometimes we think it. You know, I mean, there's young kids thinking their parents are going to give them their inheritance, and so they're not really doing much. They're not working much. They think they're going to get that inheritance. I mean, I know of a guy 54 years old still living with his mom and dad thinking he's going to get the inheritance and still don't have a job. But you should never have your eyes on that kind of thing. You should have your eyes on Jesus. You should have your eyes on the one who made you to promise. You should have your eyes on what the Word has to say about work. You know, one of the great stories that the Lord taught me, and I did a teaching called Opportunity, What Are You Doing With It? And one of the things that came to me was, here's the nation Israel. Now, you know, they didn't do too much by faith to get out of Egypt. You guys know that, right? Didn't do much by faith. Now, faith is the key here, okay? Because that was the lesson we learned from Abraham, okay? He was the founder of the nation Israel. He was the first Jew. So in Egypt, many years later, faith was still important because that's where the promise comes. It comes from our faith. And it was true of the Old Testament, and it's true of the New Testament. It's based on better promises in the New Testament, but it's still faith. And he was blessed richly in everything. Family, everything. He had it all. But what happened to the nation Israel many, many, many years later? They ended up, in relation to Joseph, they ended up in Egypt. The whole shooting match ended up in Egypt. And they started working for the Egyptians because they got comfortable. It got easy. Day in and day out, got a little easier. They had their food, they had their clothing. But you know what they didn't have? They didn't have their promised land. They got comfortable there. Do you see where most individuals are in life? They're in Egypt. And they're just working and working and working. And you're in Egypt. That's where most Christians are. And when I say most, I'm generally talking majority. Okay, something over 51%. And I don't have a clue how many, but most of them that I know, they're in Egypt. And how do you get out of Egypt? How do you get the blessing of Abraham? How do you get out of Egypt? That's what it is. So guess what? Do you know how long they were in Egypt? 400 years, plus or minus. 400 years? We've only been a nation for what, 270? Have we been a nation? Something like that? Yeah, it's 1776 to 250, I guess. Yeah, closer to that. So bottom line is, they were in Egypt in bondage, working for the man every night and day. All the gold and stuff that they ended up having, most of the Israelis worked for it. But they didn't have faith. So do you think there's guys out here working and doing things, you know, that they have faith in what they're doing? No, they get caught in a routine we call, you get to your normal, and you're no longer in faith. You're no longer going to the Father and saying, show me what to do. You get comfortable with what you're doing, and basically, you get stymied. I mean, God doesn't hate you for it. but you get stymied. And then that kind of faith goes over into your healing and your health. It goes over into your marriage and your family. It goes over into all kinds of relationships and your friendships. Because if you don't have faith in everything, it's going to be lacking in something. And so here's the nation Israel. They're in Egypt. And one day, God says, it's time. I need to get these boys out of there. I guess they were close to, some people say 4 million. I've heard 4 million people. I've heard 4 million men and then women and children. I've heard 2 million men and women. I've heard all kinds of stuff and whatever. And I don't know that that's important, but there was a lot of folks. They had a lot of babies in 400 years. Okay? If a generation, and of course I heard, generations 20 years, and I heard generations 30 years. I've heard generations 40 years. I've heard all kinds of stuff there, and I don't know that that's important. But the bottom line is they had lots of generations having babies. So they had lots of folks, because it gets exponential after a while, right? What should you guys rather have? Now, let me get this right. Would you rather give you $10,000, or would you rather have a penny doubled every day for 30 days? Comes out to millions. So the doubling happened pretty good, right? 400 years. So here they are. They're stuck. Got no leadership. Nobody is leading anything. So God raises up a man named Moses. And so Moses, through the course of approximately 12 great miracles, gets Pharaoh to change his mind. Guess what it took? Loss of his son. Because he didn't care about the people. These people were suffering from bugs and blood in their water and crickets and every kind of a debacle thing you could imagine. They were fighting it. And the amazing part is the Israelis weren't getting it. So here you go. They get out of Egypt. So what happened? God just did it. He just got them out. They weren't in faith. They weren't believing for nothing. They weren't in any kind of, there was no kind of activity where faithful Abraham is concerned that they all knew about. The blessing of Abraham, the faith of Abraham, all the goodness of Abraham. None of them getting it. None of them were living in that blessing. Because they were not living in that faith. So God just says, okay, going to get them out of Egypt. Here we go. They're marching out of Egypt. They come up to the Red Sea. And the Red Sea, obviously, is still difficult to cross. Have you ever seen it on the map? It's like, man, that's a long way to swim with donkeys and, they actually left with all the blessings of Egypt. They had their gold, they had their silver, they had their food, their clothing. They had all kinds of blessings, and God just gave it to them. Here, it's just yours. Just go. Just get out of there. I got to get you guys out of here because you guys will be here forever if I don't get you out of here. So God just did it. So here they are, they're standing at the Red Sea. And what started happening? You know what's even worse on all that? Complaining. They started complaining. You ever been there? Griping and groaning about your situation. Why me? Why do I have these problems? Why ain't you doing something for me? God, why don't you bless me? Are you blessing Joe Blow over there? Why me? Why not? How come something ain't happening for me? Complaining. God got fed up with their complaining. But you know what he did? Here comes Pharaoh's army. And they got the chariots going and everything's rocking and rolling, and they got the weapons. And I don't even know that the Israelis even had any weapons. I don't know that we have any signs of that in the scriptures. But we know the Pharaoh had an army. Well, the Israelites didn't have an army. They're just walking like sheep. No motivation, no goal, no plan, no nothing. Nothing to do with Abraham, nothing to do with anything God would have anything to do with. They just gone. And they start griping and complaining. Now, he just got them miraculously out of Egypt. But you know what they did? They wanted to go back. Man, we were happy over there being their slave. Now you're going to have us out here and kill us. What's the point in that? Minus faith. So they're standing there. God sees what's going on, so he told Moses, look, you got that staff. I told you that's what you had, and that's all that you needed. From the very beginning, he told Moses, because Moses said, what am I going to do? I can't do nothing. And he said, well, what's that staff you got in your hand? He said, throw it down. Turned into a snake, and instead he started running. From the snake, so hold it. You can't pick the snake up. Well, you don't pick a snake up with the tail. That's not what you do, but he did. Picked it up by the tail, turned back into a snake, or a staff. And God said this to him. You don't need nothing else. That's how I'm going to get people out of it with this stick. I'm going to use this stick. Do you understand what God's trying to do here? He's trying to get them to see that it doesn't matter about you. You don't count. And you don't count now. None of you do. Because the minute you start thinking you need to count, you're going to start looking at your own abilities, your own talents, your own money, your own this, your own that, and all that other crap. And God says, just take the stick. Not about you, Moses. I don't need your intellect. I don't need your power. I don't need your thinking. I don't need your strength. I know you killed that Egyptian. I know you're a pretty powerful man, but I don't need it. I don't need any of it. He was really humble by this time anyways. He was rejected and ran off for a while. That's why he said to Moses, he said, I don't need you. I just need the stick. You know why? Because the stick don't complain. You guys will get to read some about this next week. I was posting all week next week. And I've been writing about this. God don't need you. God don't need your talents. He chooses the lowly things of this life to confound those people that really think there's something. He chooses the base things. And I've done a whole series on that. This very thing I'm talking about. God doesn't need you. You know what he needs? Your stick. He needs your willingness. That's it. That's the opposite of complaining. Just needs your stick. You want to just keep living like you always have? Just keep doing whatever you've done and be there 50 years from now? Is that what you want? If you don't get into the Word of God and get into the things of God, that's where you'll be. You have no other choice. See, because most of us are base kind of people. We're those people that I'm talking about. He chooses the base things of this world, the lowly things. That's all of us, pretty much. Would you agree? Pretty lowly. Oh, we might have all had just a little bit of zippity-doo-dah of success, but it didn't amount to anything. It didn't last long. And one day you woke up and you realized, I ain't getting anywhere. I'm nowhere, and I guess this is where I got to be. That's where the Israelites were. And they're standing at the Red Sea because of a stick. 4 million people got motivated. They all have gold and silver and all kinds of wealth and all kinds of benefits and blessings and everything else because of stick. Now that's donkey. A stick. That'll encourage you guys. All you need is a stick. Ask God what it is. He'll tell you. It's something. Because you're not sitting in this room right now because you want to be normal. You're here because you know there's something else. And we're going to get there. We're going to get there. We just took a very large amount of money, $40,000, and we just gave it to a ministry, and that came from you guys. You're all going to get that blessing. Whoever has been a partner with this ministry, you're going to get that blessing. So be ready for it. Now, if you haven't, you'll have to go somewhere else or get it somewhere else. But if you've been a partner here, that blessing is coming your way. Because that's who I am. Everything I have, I got it because I've been a giver. That was one of my sticks. Well, I only got $1. I've given $1 before. I've taken change out of my pocket and threw it in the thing because it's all that I had. That was just a stick. But what does God say about that kind of stick? 30, 60, 100 full return. Just a stick. That's all. So bottom line, they know they're going to lose their life, right? Isn't that what it looked like? Isn't that what it felt like? They could see it, feel it, hear it, taste it, touch it. Must be real. If that's what you believe, the stick will never work for you. Because you always look at the stick as, what the sand hill is this? A stick. God will speak to you to do something and you'll never do it. Because it don't make any sense to you. Well, that don't make any sense to me. What are we doing out here in this wilderness, standing at a sea? This makes no sense to us, Moses. What are we doing out here? Moses says, because of the stick. Oh, yeah, right. Crazy man. What else was he going to tell him? He didn't know nothing either. I just know the stick got us out here. So evidently, the stick is going to get us out of this position. Was he right? A stick. Split the water wide enough that millions of people could pass through. And you know what else? The ground was perfectly dry. You ever go outside in the field after a rain? When the mud gets up over your ankles? I've been there, man. I remember framing out in the job one time. I was framing a house, me and 2 other guys. It was the springtime. The ground was still frozen, so the guy that graded it in the late fall You know, it was just, when you grate dirt, you grate it in chunks like this. You got to wait till it dries. But, you know, you wanted to get the foundation backfilled so we could start framing. So I just chunks, just irregular, the whole ground around the whole house, totally irregular. I'd step on a clod and my ankle would twist, and I'd slide off that big chunk of dirt because it's iced. But it's spring and it's starting to melt a little bit. And I remember carrying that truss. Me and this guy were carrying this truss, and I stepped in some soft ground. I'm trying to not step on any of those ice cubes that are hanging up in the air, 12 inches and 10 inches. And I stepped in one, and it walked right out of my shoes, both of them, carrying this truss. That was a good day. But you know one thing about me? I've never complained, not one time. And if anybody had a right to, it was me. Never. Never. Not even when we have ding-dong customers. Never. Because all you're saying is you don't believe in the stick. God gave you the stick. And you're supposed to use that thing. Even though it don't make any sense, you're supposed to use that thing. Whatever that is. You use that thing to bring blessing. Protect, watch over. And he used the stick several times, didn't he? He struck a rock and water came out of it. That stick was it. So bottom line, water split, ground went dry. Now you got to understand, this all happened in a time that these chariots are visual. Now how long do you think it'd take to get those chariots from visual to the Red Sea? You ever thought about that? They saw them, and the water hadn't split yet. How long do you think that took? $10 minutes? I mean, we don't even think about it, do we? 10 minutes, maybe. 15, I don't know. But those chariots, they were rocking and rolling, and they were visual. That wouldn't take long. So God did another miracle. You see the magnitude of these miracles? Now, this is the second one. You got it? This is the second miracle. They all know about they're blessed like faithful Abraham. That's what they've been told. Or at least I'm assuming they had. That was the teaching of the Jewish nation. Abraham was the king. I mean, even in Jesus' days, hundreds of years later, in Jesus' day, they all said, oh, Abraham is our king. Told Jesus that. Who do you think you are? Who are you? Abraham is our king. Abraham is our dude. He's the guy we follow. So that, that carried on for, a couple thousand years. And so they're here, they know about that, but they're not living it. They got comfortable, so they forgot about all that. Boom, another miracle, got over. And then the other miracle, water came in on the Pharisees. So Psalm 91 was working. No evil will befall them, neither will any plague come nigh their dwelling. Because God gives his angels charge over them to keep them in all their ways, and they'll bear them up lest they dash their foot against a stone. Psalm 91 was working. Bam! But you know what was missing? Faith. There was no faith. They weren't believing for that at all. What are you believing for? You know, most people can have kind of a Red Sea experience. My gosh, you can live on welfare with a little Red Sea experience. Kind of God taking care of you, you know, God helping you out. Retirees, they got their own little money thing going on. Is God kind of taking care of them? Or you can go out here and get a basic job and flip hamburgers at McDonald's, whatever. I'm not belittling any of that, but they're not, most of the time, people with faith and people that have a vision. Could, but probably most don't. And so, they march a little while longer. Man, they're all going, whew. Man, that was a close one. Man, that was close. Have you seen them poor guys drowning out there in those chariots? Wasn't that something? That was really something. Man, look what God did. You couldn't have denied it, right? How could you be that stupid? You couldn't deny it. Right? That's how I feel about Americans and people that are griping and complaining and live in this country. How could you be this stupid? To tear this country apart and to say it ain't right and we got to make all these changes and there ain't nothing in it that's good. And how can you be that stupid? I don't know. Maybe you guys will come up with the wisdom to tell me one of these days. But I don't know how you could be that stupid. But it was like the nation Israel. They got done with the Red Sea and now they're marching up again. And man, that was close. And all of a sudden, guess what they start doing again? This country is so blessed. Oh my goodness, this country is blessed. Ha! It's blessed beyond your wildest dreams. And yet most people gripe and complain and growl and groan, whether it's about the president or about the this or about the that. You know, forget about all that. Get your stick and start doing something with it. Do something. What's your stick, Corey? Your business God gave you. That's a stick. What are you doing with it? You know what? It's just a stick. Just a piece of wood. Didn't even exist. All right? Didn't even exist. But God gave you a stick. Sometimes it just doesn't seem like anything. It's just like it's hard to relate, you know. It's like, but God gave you a stick. He gave you an opportunity. Here's what I'm trying to say. They're standing at the Jordan River. They send out the spies. What was the example the spies gave to the people? Complaining. All that you're saying is correct, but I want to keep this thread continuous. Complaining. You're going to send us over there. We're going to die over there. My God, there's giants over there. God, didn't you not promise us you'd give us a land flowing with milk and honey? Yeah. Well, this ain't the place. Let's go somewhere else. You said he was going to give it to us. Did he not say that? I'm going to give you a land flowing with milk and honey. Joshua 5:6, the Israelites had moved about in the desert 40 years until all the men who were of military age when they left Egypt had died, since they had not obeyed the Lord. For the Lord had sworn to them that they would not see the land that he had solemnly promised their fathers to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. They had it. It was flowing with milk and honey, but they saw the giants. Is there anything in your way to keep you from having your business? There is. All kinds of things. But you've got to decide whether that stick is greater than the obstacles. There's always going to be something in your face telling you can't, this won't, it'll never happen, I don't see how that's going to work. I don't know how you're going to get that done. I got all these problems. I got all these people, and I got all this, and there's always complaining to be done. Always something standing in your way to complain about. Always will be. Always. That's the nature of the world we live in. That's what the world has. That's why we need godly men to rule. Because the ungodly men only know complaining. And that leads to cheating and corruption and deception and every kind of an evil thing you can imagine. What did they do for 4 years when Donald Trump was president? Never did anything right. Never. Complaining. Exact opposite of what the Word says. It says you're supposed to pray for your leaders. Don't get caught in it with this Biden dude. Stay out of it. Complaining ain't going to fix it. It'll cause issues to come into your life. You pray, do what God told you to do. And whatsoever things are lovely and honest and just and pure and true and of a good report, if there's anything virtuous and anything worthy of praise, think on these things. So when you hear about evil, you hear about ugly, you're getting that discernment not to complain. You're getting that discernment to pray. That's why you're getting it. God gives you discernment not to complain and gripe and groan about your marriage, your children, about your jobs or your employees or your people you're working for, whatever it is. He doesn't give you that discernment to use complaining. He gave it to you to pray. He gave you insight so that you know how to pray. You see a problem, that's not the time to complain. It's the time to get in your prayer closet and pray. Pray. That's what I did when I had the problem with this customer. I prayed. I asked God what to do. He told me. Didn't make any sense to me, but it was a stick. I just did it. And guess what? It worked. Some of the guys that were invited didn't even say a word. I just did it. It's just a stick God gave me. How do you solve this issue? Well, here's a stick. Well, that don't look like nothing. Well, that's stupid. I can't believe anybody would do that. I don't know why anybody would think this is going to work. That don't make any sense to me. I don't have the money. I don't have the finances. I don't have the education. I don't have the yada, 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 yada. So just take the stick and do something with it. It's never going to make sense to you. Never. Nothing that God does will ever make sense to you. And the reason why is He wants you to know it's not about you. It's about what He's going to do. You understand? Whatever level you're at, it's about what He's going to do, not about what you are going to do. Because you all learned a long time ago, you ain't got it. But the key is, you got the one who does. He's got it. He's got a stick. And He's given it to you. And you say, what the heck is this? See, that money that our ministry gave didn't start when we did it. It started 48 years ago when God asked me to give what I had in my pocket. And then He asked me to give this, and He asked me to give that. Once God asked me, I had saved $10,000. I had it in my bank account. It was the only money I had to my name. I had 3 little children at home. 3. Newborn, 1.5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And this ain't the first time that God asked me to do this. He's asked me to do this more than once. And I went to see a man named Kenneth Hagin down in Kentucky. I didn't even really know too much about him other than I knew he was a faith preacher, what we called a faith preacher back in the 70s. Maybe it was early 80s, I don't know, but somewhere. And during that meeting, I was trying to get out that $5 I got in my pocket, and the Lord says, no, that's not what I want you to do. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, you know that money you got in your bank account? That's what I want you to give him. And I had a check with me. And what's your first reaction? Do I have a second opinion up there somewhere? Can I get a second opinion? So see, I've been doing this a long time. Do you wonder why I have what I have? You don't have to wonder. I'm telling you. I just took this stick and I did something with it. I don't know what exactly happened after that. Don't remember all the details. But I was sitting on 2 spec houses. And then he asked me to do something, and I did it. They were gone. Been sitting on them for 4 years. If you're going to try and figure it out, you're never going to get there. Faith doesn't figure things out. What is faith? What is faith? The substance, things hoped for. Doesn't say the substance. This chair? No, this chair is not something I'm hoping for. If I was hoping for it, it wouldn't be here. This chair wouldn't be here. Why? I don't need any faith to believe in this chair. I mean, pretty obvious it's already here, right? So why would you have any faith about this chair? And this is where most people are. This is where the nation Israel was. They were wanting a chair. They wanted to see, God, why don't you wait? We wake up some night or some morning and all those giants over there are all dead. Now that would give us a sign. See, they wanted something tangible. But God says that's not faith. So they're standing there and they start complaining. Moses gets mad, goes up in the mountain. Then they decide we're going to build a golden calf. Start worshiping some other God. Have you got any golden calves in your life? You ever said, I'm going to stop doing this. I'm tired of this. I'm just going to go get me whatever, or get Easy Street, and I'm just going to quit screwing around with this stuff. But you know what? I never stopped. I'd run into walls, and I'd get up, and I'd say, God, what do you want me to do? He said, well, keep hitting the wall. Now, how am I going to keep hitting the wall when everybody's left town? And I want to build houses. And how am I going to do that? He said, get up, and every morning I want you to hit the wall. Well, how will I do that? He said, get in the Word. He gave me a stick. Just get in the Word. So I just get in the Word. And I kept hitting the wall. I kept hitting the wall. And my shoulders started getting bloody. And that wall wasn't moving. So I said, well, should I go over it? Should I go around it? Should I dig under it? Should I do something else? He said, hit the wall. I said, hit the wall? Yeah. Take that stick and keep hitting the wall. And I remember one day, I looked down and the wall had moved an inch. And I said, Wow. I had scars all over my shoulders and all over my body. But my arms were 3 times bigger than they used to be. My legs were bigger. My mind was stronger. I was more capable. So I just got up the next morning. I said, I'm going to knock this sucker down. And I hit that wall and it moved 3 inches. And that's how I got here. That's what I seen in my spirit. That's what God showed me. He showed me the whole thing. Can God talk to you? Well, he ain't going to talk to you if you don't give him time. He's not going to bother you. He's a perfect gentleman. If ever he was going to stop somebody from doing something, he would have stopped Eve. But he didn't do it. He didn't do it. And we read that thing like, God come along, do. Oh! Eve! Well, did you really do something? Like God, he's omniscient. Do you understand? How do they translate that stuff that way? God is omniscient. It's like he come into the garden and he's like, well, I didn't know anything was going on here. What's going on? He only had 2 people to keep an eye on. Are you kidding me? He was omniscient. He knew everything was going on. God knows everything that's going on in your life, period. But he isn't going to stop it. That's what the translators couldn't get figured out. He ain't going to stop that. That wasn't his plan. That wasn't his word. He keeps his word. What did he tell them when they were created? Be fruitful and multiply. Take dominion over the earth. Well, if he would have stopped going in there and said, Eve, hold it. No, wait a minute. You ain't doing that, lady. Well, he would have just violated the very thing he just got done telling them. Do you remember the song tonight Wayne played?
He set it up. Believe it.
Why? That was on there too.
He's faithful.
He's faithful. He does what he says. I know you don't believe it that way because you aren't that way. That's why you don't believe he's faithful, because you're not faithful. Do you understand? You will never understand things around you any higher than where you are. Do you understand? You'll never do it. So if you're not faithful, you're not going to understand it. I suggest you get faithful real fast. And the best place to start, where is it? Quit complaining. Quit griping. Quit moaning and groaning. Quit it. And that'll be a huge leap for mankind. So, they had an opportunity. He got tired of the complaining, and everybody lost their life. He gave them 3 shots. 3. And they were not able to enter the promised land. Military age and up. And some people say 20 years of age. I think maybe there's even a translation that says everybody 20 years of age and up, military, not women, men, okay? The guys are supposed to be the leaders, supposed to be the bosses, supposed to be making things happen. The men, they lost their life. They weren't allowed to enter in. It was not going to happen. It says here that God had made a promise to the people of Israel as they were anticipating the promised land. And I would give them a land flowing with milk and honey, and would give them the enemies. The reason for this hesitancy of going over into the promised land is they misunderstood the word. That's my writing. They have misunderstood the word give. You ever hear somebody say, he gave me that, but there's always strings attached? You know, somebody's going to expect you to do something for them later or something. When God says he's going to give, he's just not going to hand it to it. What would you learn from that? What did the Israelites learn from getting out of Egypt? What did Israelites learn from crossing the Red Sea? And then building the golden calf? They're griping and complaining, and here's the land, man. Do you guys have any idea how close you are to having utopia? But they couldn't get their brain into the stick. All they could see was the size of the giants. Was that not the case when they were in Egypt? When the stick got them out? See? God empowered the stick. And so this is what the Lord said to me. He said, when I give you something, I give you an opportunity. If you constantly look at yourself, you're never going to do it because you can't see any farther than what you already know. But if you take that stick of opportunity and you say, I don't know how, but I believe. What is that? Faith. I don't know how, but I believe. Because faith is the greatest gift that you will ever get. It took faith to receive the grace. Grace was a great gift, but it took the faith to get it. You're saved by grace through faith. Grace saved you, but let me ask something. Is grace in this room? Is grace in downtown Lima? Is it? Is grace across the street here and all the neighbors? Is grace there? It's everywhere. What's it take? It takes faith to get the grace. It's everywhere. It takes it. You got to do it. You got to use it. You got to take the stick and you got to use it. I know it don't look like it's going to accomplish nothing. It's just a piece of wood. But see, God takes your hands and says, these can be normal, or they can be empowered by me. That's what it says. If you have your heart and your mind focused on Him, not you, He will put the super in your natural. And these hands, even though it looks like you're just doing the normal thing, if you believe, they will become supernatural and you will begin to see the fruit of it. I've seen it dozens of times. where he put the super in my natural. Because in my brain, I could not figure it out. And that's okay. That's where he wants you. Because if he tells you that these are supernatural, you're going to look at him and say, well, they just look like hands to me. Got calluses all over them, and you know, I hit my finger with a hammer today, and it's like going thump 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 thump. You ever done that? That's like the stick. Those are even better than a stick. God can do it, but you have to believe it by faith. And here's the key. Oh boy, I don't know if I'll get into that. Well,
And here's the key.
1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 12 in the New King James Version says, and we labor, working with our own hands, being reviled, we bless, being persecuted, we endure. 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says, for even when we were with you, we would give you this command, if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. How do you activate the stick? Put your hands some. But if you're not believing from God's perspective, you're going to be standing at the Red Sea, and the enemy's going to catch you. Because you haven't learned how to use the stick. To us, that stick is the supernatural that's in us. That's the stick that God gave us. That's what the stick had. It's just a piece of wood. But God's supernatural. You're just a piece of flesh. You know what you're worth? We throw you in an oven and cook you down to dust. You know what you're worth? Huh? You're worth nothing. I had a guy, I was reading about this guy, he's talking about, man, if they get all the minerals out of our body and they get all this yada, 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 and they get all this stuff going, and they say, your body is worth $2 million. I said, that guy's, he's... I mean, I don't know what he was even trying to prove. He wasn't a Christian, but I just reading at him going, all of our bodies are worth $2 million. My gosh, if I was a stark raving heathen, I'd just start killing people and collecting bodies. Why would I need to work anymore? How stupid can you be? There's nothing there. It's just flesh. The God says it's just flesh. Isn't it amazing how, you're 200 pounds and then if you die, it's just, there's nothing left. There's nothing there. Yeah, it's just, there's nothing. I'm just saying that even the dust that's there is just nothing. It's gone. It just mixes in with the rest of the dust. And God told us about that in Genesis. You're just nothing. There's only one thing of value in you, and that's the Spirit of God inside of you. That's got reality. Because it made your spirit man brand new. Now that's got worth. Now let's talk about that. Let's talk about the stick. Let's talk about what you're capable of doing with God's help, with God's supernatural blessing. Let's talk about that. That's all that's worth talking about. If you talk about that and you want to talk about the government, and you want to talk about the this or the that or the church or whatever, bottom line is, you do that right, and you be owning the government. You'll be helping control the government. You'll be supporting people or being a blessing to people. See what I'm saying? Or anybody else or anything else. School systems. You'll start your own school.
Yeah.
But you just got to learn how to use the stick. If you don't learn how to use the stick, you're just a normal. That's all you are. You get up, you go to work, you go eat supper, most of the time too much. You go to bed at night after your snacks, which multiplies the problem. You get up in the morning, you don't exercise, and you go do the same old thing again, and then you end up your life at 65, and hopefully you can find a place down in Florida you can go down and die. That's what I see. That's what the Lord showed me. Men work 40 years getting wisdom and knowledge, and they just stop and go down and die. Their whole life is about where they're going to eat tonight. That's it. No stick, no nothing. They're just stuck in the mud, going nowhere. You know how many people have asked me, Doyle, why don't you retire? Don't you have enough? They really know my vision, don't they? Don't you have enough? I mean, where you live and what you drive and it, don't you have enough? No. Because I want God to use this stick as long as He can. Because I don't see myself as what I got. It's not about me, my wife, my 2 kids, us 4, no more. That's not what I'm about. That's why I've posted over 1,800 times. That's why I've spent the time over here and then the study time. I got my postings done all the way through 2 weeks from now. You know why? I'm going on vacation next week, and I want to make sure this keeps going because I have a responsibility, and I'm a responsible man. And you know why I want to be responsible? Because the more responsible I am, the more God gives me. And the more God gives me, the more of a blessing I can be to others. I'm just a little guy. I've given hundreds and hundreds of thousands. I'm just a little nobody in the middle of nowhere. I'm just a piece of wood. That's all I am. Because you burn me up, basically and you burn this piece of wood, we look the same. That's about it. A bunch of ashes, that's it. But I feel I have a responsibility in the kingdom of God. And that's the way every Christian should be. Not work your whole life so you can retire. Now, if you want to work your whole life to go do something better, well, maybe we can talk. But my gosh, how many people do that? They just, basically, they give up on life. Did you ever hear the story of, God showed me a long time ago. I was talking to him about retirement and all this kind of thing. I'm talking about a long time ago. See, I never had any, retirement's never been in my mind. I don't even consider how many hours a week I work. I have no idea. I don't. I have no idea. I don't know what I work. I don't know how much I work. I don't know what I'm worth. I may be worth 50 cents an hour. I don't know. I have no clue. I graduated from college, hit the ground running, and I started building houses. I had a house to build. I was 22 years old. And I built a house the summer before in Toledo, between my junior and senior year. I'm not saying you got to build houses. I'm just saying you need to be doing something that's constructive. It doesn't have to be in business, because God, what is God? He'll bless a stick. You can be in whatever you feel you're called to be in, and He'll bless you. He'll make a way where there is no way. You understand? That's what God does. That's what God's involved with. He doesn't need anything, all that other stuff. He just wants you to do what He's called you to do, because every one of us have been called to do something. Find out what it is and get to doing it, even though it just seems like a stick. Do it. But I was talking to the Lord about this retirement. And I was praying and I was reading, and all of a sudden God gave me a vision of an old Tarzan movie I seen back with Johnny Weissmuller. I suppose it was filmed back in the 30s. He was an Olympic champion in swimming, and then he went to Hollywood and they put him in a Tarzan movie. His name was Johnny Weissmuller. And they were fighting the poachers. And these poachers would come in, from various countries, and they'd come in and kill the elephants for the ivory. Okay? And there was a place hidden out in the jungle that Tarzan knew about. He knew about this place because he really loved the animals, and he didn't want them dying, and he didn't want people killing them, and didn't want them using them for things they shouldn't be using them for, and they didn't want the greed. We got that stuff everywhere, and we've had it forever. It didn't just start this week or January 1 with our president. We've had greed and love of money and all this stuff going on forever. But here he is. He's finding out that these poachers are coming in from another country, and they're marching, and they're looking for elephants. But he knew of this elephant boneyard. You know what the elephant boneyard was? All the elephants knew when they were going to die. And they would all march, sometimes hundreds of miles, to elephant boneyard. And that's where the elephants would die. They'd go to the boneyard. And you know how many thousands of elephants were there with their ivory? Just laying, the bodies are all gone, and this huge, hundreds of acres of skeletons of elephants. That the elephants instinctively knew they'd walk to the boneyard. They'd just be instinctive. And the Lord said to me, that's what retirement is. They're men who have gone to the boneyard. They've gone there to die. And I said, wow. I got it. That was pretty loud and clear to me. Was that for just me? You know how much wisdom and knowledge dies down there? Wondering where to eat their next meal. Fearful if they got enough money to last till their body dies. Isn't that a horrible place to be? That's horrible. Wondering if I got enough. Do we have them chewing their nails? You got the commercials on TV. Oh, we don't know if we got enough money to live the rest of our lives. I'm going, dear me, is that... That's America. That's what... We've drank the Kool-Aid. Can you show that in the Word to me anywhere? Can you show that in the Bible? Because that's my manual for life. So if you could show that to me, I'll put it into my life. What is it? I don't know what that is. Laziness? Fear? I don't know. No vision for sure. No vision, no dream, no goal, no plan. How about teaching your children? Wouldn't that be a good thing to do? Teach them that you keep going and you keep at it. And now we got a group of millennials that don't even want to work. Because this is what they've been taught. And now they think the government ought to pay for everything. Did you hear the president on an interview? He's whispering. He said, just pay the people more money and they'll come back to work. Because they were saying we can't get people to work. Just pay them more money and they will come back to work. I've paid them $1.9 trillion. Oh yeah, that was out of your pocket, right, Joe? That was out of your pocket? No, it was out of our pocket. That's just foolishness. We got to call it quits, boys. Well, I won't be here next week. So can you help me out? Wayne, I won't be here next week, so. Okay. Father, we praise you. We thank you. We give you glory and praise. Teach us about the stick. Sorry, teach us to put the super in our natural in everything that we do, to do it by faith. The same way we look at your lashes on your body, the same way we look at your blood. Teach us about the supernatural in our hands and in our feet. That we're not just doing the normal thing. We're not normal people. Show us how to live that way. We're not normal. We're empowered by the power of the Holy Spirit. He'll put that thing in your hands and in your feet that causes the blessings of his promise through faithful Abraham. Blessed coming, blessed going, blessed here, blessed there, blessed everywhere. Every place that you are will be blessed. Every place where the soles of your feet land will be blessed. But you have to do it by faith. That's how it works. Because it doesn't make sense to your brain. And we give you thanks and praise for this, Father. In the name of Jesus. Amen.